The Immortal John Hancock here, and today I thought I'd just do a fun video on why I love Atari. And specifically, I'm talking about the Atari 2600, which is near and dear to my heart. I do a lot of videos about Atari, and some people might come to my channel and want to know why. I'm a Gen Xer. I grew up with Atari, Nintendo, Sega, and more. And definitely my first retro console that I had in my collection was Atari 2600. And I had a black and white TV. I got one used secondhand. I didn't get it when it came out. And really my experience with Atari 2600 was mid to late 80s. And this was something that I acquired after I got a Nintendo. And so this is something on my retro gaming journey that a lot of people may not know. And you know what? It was something that I really appreciate. Now, I grew up with Atari, and I played original 2600 at my cousin's, but owning my first 2600 was something later on. And so I am a huge fan of the Atari 2600 and still love it to this day. I love the support, and I just want to talk about why I love it so much. So nostalgia is a big factor. It was in my childhood. I got to experience many different games, many of them the iconic classics. And so first and foremost, you know, it doesn't matter how you play your Atari 2600 games, emulation. Here's an original 2600 Junior that I've had in my collection a long time. It's been modded, whether you play on a CRT or maybe you're going with the more modern Atari with the 2600 Plus, which plays 7800 and 2600 games, or you have a 7800 Plus and you play that way. You play the way you want, or if you have a Retron 77 and you have some other setup, it doesn't matter. You know, you do you, and you play the way you want to play. From my experience, currently I'm playing on the 2600 Plus. I'm going to get to that in a bit. But, you know, I grew up with the iconic classics. You know, some just off the top of my head, absolutely loved Berserk. I love the new version of it with the voice enhancements that Atari offers on their site. But that's just one example. Ms. Pac-Man was another game that I thought was a great arcade port. And for the 2600, graphics, you know what, it couldn't compare to the arcade counterparts on graphics. But that gameplay was there. The gameplay was super solid. You know, many arcade iconic classics is what I remember playing on the 2600, and those are the games that, you know, I have vivid memories of. Some other games, so Miss Pac-Man and Berserk were mentioned. Space Invaders. Space Invaders was another game that I sunk my teeth in. Absolutely fantastic port of an iconic arcade game and an early hit for the Atari 2600. The other arcade hits that I enjoyed playing, Popeye. I've done a dedicated video on the many ports of Popeye. The 2600 version is really, really good. Mario Brothers, I keep going back to that. Such a fun port. You know, graphics, it's totally inferior to the arcade counterpart, but man, the gameplay is solid. Those are just a few examples of some of the many arcade ports that I appreciate. And you know what, if you're just jumping in, you know, it's kind of cool to see people jumping in. They're getting a 2600 Plus or even original 2600 or Junior or otherwise. And you know what, people jumping in now, you can get a lot of the iconic games cheap. Atari physical releases are fairly cheap. Just to show a few that you might jump across, you know, Space Invaders here. You know, we can go Ms. Pac-Man. Maybe you gotta do a shout out to Warlords, great paddle game. You know, a lot of these games, especially physical, aren't too much. They're made in high volume. Usually you find 2600 loose carts at either retro stores or otherwise. You go to a show or an expo, you can find them, and the common stuff is going to be more affordable and cheap, and you can probably pick them up, you know, very affordably. And what's cool is that, you know what, they're durable and they last, and you can stack them. I got one of these like organizers here for some of my more common games that I enjoy playing. Those are ones I kind of gravitate to, and I just pull them out, play them on the 2600 Plus, as it's convenient and easy to play. Iconic game library. So the 2600, many of the very popular arcade classics of the time had a port. Frogger comes to mind, Q*bert, great port, and fantastic way of playing home versions. You know, I lived far away from a local arcade, so playing 2600 games back in the day was more convenient for me. You know, I didn't have a huge arcade near me. There was arcades in town, but going to town was infrequent and something I didn't get to do. And even if I went into town, it wasn't to play arcade games. It was like grocery shopping or something else with my family. Mass market appeal means it was widely available. I can't tell you how many third-party offerings there are for games. It was sold in the millions, and you can still get a used 2600 cheap, fairly affordable. It's gone up a little bit in price, but you know, if you want to go original, you can get a unit fairly affordable. Let's talk about that iconic joystick, the CX40. As you know what, this can be found nearly everywhere, and you can fix it, you can repair it. I'm going to do an upcoming video about that. And there's lots of different accessories. I got this 3D printed ball on Etsy, and I did a video about my favorite Robotron controller and a vendor there that you can pick up and get aftermarket stuff for your CX40 or for your Atari 2600. Pretty sweet. So anyways, so many different things you can get, and you can mod your original system for S-Video out. You can get all sorts of things. There's aftermarket stuff through Atari Age that you can get, aftermarket games. We're going to get back to there in a bit. But so many different ways of gaming on the 2600. The games and accessories are endless. Going back to mass market appeal, third-party support was just everywhere. I mean, there was just so many different games and companies making games. Too many eventually impacted the market, but there's just a game for everybody. Activision comes to mind, and Magic. Parker Brothers, which is kind of an unsung hero when it comes to making 2600 games, as many of them were fantastic. Those are just some of my favorite companies that made Atari 2600 games that are near and dear to my heart, and great publishers. Let's talk about the aftermarket support, because I'm a big aftermarket supporter and independent game publisher, and there's so many different games for the aftermarket. Atari Age offers some of them, but Champ Games, which now is compatible with the Atari 2600 Plus with a most recent firmware update, and it's so awesome to see some of these aftermarket games really pushing the boundaries of what the 2600 can do. Some of them use special chips to make the graphics run, graphics and sound, and others just work on original hardware. So Draconian, which is a port of Bosconian, one of my favorite aftermarket games for the Atari 2600. Such a fantastic port of Bosconian, even with voice. Then you got the awesome work from Champ Games, and I have nearly everything that they've released. Mappy comes to mind. Mappy is a game I keep coming back to. Another one is Elevator Agent, which is elevator action, and Robot War 2684, which is the Robotron 2084 port. It's so good. It's so fantastic. And those are just some small examples of aftermarket games. And if you're curious, and I will show this here, is that I am an independent game publisher, and I've worked with some programmers along the way, and Gemitronic is a programmer that and company I work with and offer their games as an independent game publisher. And starting back in 2014, Game Panic was a game that I first published, and fantastic game that's a parody of my game collection in my garage. And then next up was Retro Game Quest, which plays a little bit like Adventure. And Catacombs of Chaos, bestseller. It's a roguelike and just a wonderful 4K game that a lot of people enjoy, and people have really appreciated these games. And I've offered these over many years. Check out that artwork. Corey Kramer, thank you so much. And does the artwork for my 2600 games. And last and definitely not least is Game Panic 3. And so these are games that I've published and offer at expos. If I am in person, I also offer them on Etsy and eBay. And this is something that I love and appreciate publishing. And I love the console so much that I wanted to offer my own games. And that's just a small example. There's so many other wonderful aftermarket games that people have made, produced, published, offered on Atari Age, Champ Games, and more. And just want to thank everybody who has came to my channel, has done a comment about their own story about the Atari 2600. And I'd love to hear your comments. Why do you love the Atari 2600? Why do you love gaming on it? Are you currently collecting for it? Which is another aspect of it. For me, it's about playing the Atari 2600, but I think it's fantastic to collect all the different boxes and colors. It's so eclectic, and there's never really an end to collecting 2600, as there's always something else. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in to this fun video. I enjoyed doing this one. I enjoy talking about Atari, Sega, Nintendo, and more. And if you like what you see on my channel, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button and clicking the bell, as I'm uploading videos every week. You folks are wonderful and beautiful. Let's keep it positive. This is the Immortal John Hancock, and you take care.